Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Combat Patrol box set for the Dark Angels. Going to look at various aspects of the box set and letting you know my thoughts. First thing I'd like to discuss is why buy a box set. So the main rule here is that you're looking for a discount on the price if you were to buy them separately, but there may be a couple of mitigating circumstances that may mean that you are actually better buying them separately because there might be a few undesirable units within the box. So if you're going to buy it for gaming, have you made test lists? Does every unit in that, in the box set appear in those lists? If it doesn't, then you might not be ideal buying the box set. And are all the units useful? No, bear in mind that rules do change. So by the time you maybe get them built and painted and ready to go, you might have a new codex and find that other units are more desirable, or these units are just generally not useful. And if you're buying for hobby purpose, do you have an interest in building and painting every model in the box set? If you're looking for one or a couple of units in there and the other ones are not ideal, maybe it's better buying it separately. And a big one that might be applicable to many people, including myself, is how is your current pile of shame? My cupboard is full of various models that I still need to work on, and I really don't want to add to that collection at the moment. Sometimes I might buy something to override all that in my cupboards, but I still do have a lot to work on at this moment. What I will be looking at to further evaluate this box, I'm going to look at the value, so each model's price separately, determine the actual discount you might be getting, and what ones might be undesirable, but the box set is still worth it. So you might find that some units may not be worth it, but the box set for the rest of them is good, and you still might be worth getting the box set. And then usefulness for each unit, how the units each perform, and their usefulness as of August 2023. I won't look at value based on hobby as much, as I feel this is entirely subjective. For instance, depending on the projects you're working on, dioramas you might be working on, you'll find that it's going to be a personal choice on that one, so it's not really fair for me to say my thoughts. Personally, I do find that my hobby goes from what I want to paint can change quite frequently. We're going to look at the contents of the box for the Dark Angels. So we have a Primaris Chaplain, which is a cost of £25 if bought separately, and 10th edition points are 65 points. Inceptors, which is a cost of £35, and 10th edition points is 115 points. Redemptor Dreadnought, which is a cost of £45, and 10th edition points is 225 points. Intercessors, which, because you're getting half a box set, you're only getting 5. It's going to be a cost of £18.75 and 10th edition points are 95 points. And Dark Angels Upgrade Sprue, which is, I believe you get 2 of them, is going to cost £20. The value, as of August 2023, that is £95 via Games Workshop for the box set itself, but total individually is £143.50. Total saving, £47.50, giving you about a 33.8% discount. Keep in mind, discounts from other sites, third parties, will give you additional discounts. So the total point value you're getting out of this is around 500 points. The points you receive in this box, they're about average. They're sort of right in the middle of 500 mark. Really, anything above 500 consider quite good. Anything below, not really ideal because you are spending money and getting lower amounts of points. This is even if you include the fact that you're getting 2 Dark Angel upgrade screws. If maybe you replace that with something else, maybe you rounded up the Intercessor Squads to 10-man squads, you might actually find more use out of that. Now, the first unit I want to look at is the Primaris Chaplain, which comes at 65 points per model. Now, in terms of stats, pretty standard for a model on foot. 4 wounds seems rather light to me, but apparently that's becoming a little bit of a standard there. The highlight is probably its leadership of 5+, making it really quite hard to battle shock the unit they are with. Ranged weapons, surprisingly good. I mean, the Absolver bolt pistol, a lot of people are going, why can't other models get this bolt pistol? But apparently it's only reserved for some Primaris models. And then in melee, not bad as combatant, slightly reduced in strength and AP being the critical one than, let's say, a Power Fist. But remember, you are benefiting from your +1 to wounds, which is quite ideal. But then again, it does have 2 damage, which is really, really good. Now, speaking of abilities, we do have that powerful +1 to wound rolls in melee. Very, very effective and will be useful for many of the unit. Well, depending on the unit that the Primaris Chaplain does join, it can be useful, though I would say you need to be careful on the choice you're going for because he can lead some range units that really will not benefit from it at all. Well, lightly. And then the ability to unbattle shock is also effective, as it can be the difference of controlling an objective or a unit gaining a stratagem. So it is a very handy one to have just in case that leadership does fail you, or a unit around you within 12 inches does fail. Overall thoughts on this is a pretty solid addition. I have in test games and stuff now seen how the Primaris Chaplain can be used, and it can be very useful, but with Space Marines there is a number of characters it's got to contend with. So trying to work out which one's best is difficult, but I do see use of the Primaris Chaplain. There are a few units in there that would go, yeah, this is great, but other characters may be more useful. It really depends on how you build your army in total. Intercessor Squad's next, and you're looking at about 19 points per model when it comes to this squad. So in terms of stats, pretty standard for Marines. You know, you've got your 2 wounds, you've got your 3 up save, obsec 2, you know, all of that pretty standard is what you kind of expect. In terms of weapons, we have the bolt rifle. It is quite a good mid-range damage dealer, but it has the advantage of having both advanced and heavy, which means that you can advance and still fire, and you can stay still for more accuracy. Given that a little bit of, if you want to move on to objectives, you can, you know, zoom across onto them, still deal some damage. And then if you stay still on an objective, and you can hunker down and become more accurate. Quite a number of ways you can, you know, gain benefit from the bolt rifle. It does also have -1 AP, which is very, very handy. The Sergeant is probably best to stick with the bolt rifle with the rest of the squad and have a close combat upgrade, because why not? It's free. It's always very handy to have. Abilities, we have objective secured, so you can get your stick objectives, move off it, and remains under your control. Very good for keeping up on the move. You know, if there's an objective that your opponent is really not going to go for, then you can move on and try and claim another one. And if you want to stay still on it and make yourself more accurate, you can do that as well. Overall thoughts, fairly affordable unit. Best probably to take in minimum squads, I think, to move forward onto objectives and leave them behind. You're unlikely to be able to hold off enemy units well in combat. The Sergeant may be nice for that, but overall I think these guys would struggle in that department. Although I would not consider a must-have unit, I can see that they are great-looking models as well. I really like them. I know some people do not like the Primaris stuff. I think they are excellent, and that can be a bit subjective there. But really, when you are collecting a Space Marine army, I think Intercessors are a sort of go-to battle line army. If you are looking into painting or hobbying, that's something I really think as well is quite good. We're on to Inceptors next, and they are looking at about 38.33 points per model. So in terms of stats, actually really good. Toughness 6 is surprisingly quite high. I would have thought these guys might have been toughness 5, but I suppose I think that's part of Gravis armor, so they are looking quite tough for a surprising unit there. In terms of weaponry, they have their bolter option, which is good for volume attacks. Consider for forces with less armor, and damage 2 really helps with them as well. All their abilities as well, you've got twin length, sustained hits, assault, makes them fast, reliable for amount of damage, and damage 2 is really, really good. Then you have the plasma option, which does have the more ideal choice possibly for dealing with higher armor infantry. You're looking at custodians, etc., to get there at 3 damage, which is really, really important. Twin linked assault means you keep on the move and reroll your wounds, which is really, really good there. So, number of good options on that one in terms of the weaponry. The also other part is that they can deep strike 3 inches away from an enemy but not charge. Very useful because you're not really going to charge with this unit anyway, but it means you can get past screens really close to some units in the backfield and gun them down, which I think is a very, very powerful ability. Overall thoughts, Inceptors offer a very unique role in that essentially getting past the screens, getting close up to some of the units in the back that are causing pain and bring them down, or at least, you know, give them an absolute hail of firepower. I'd probably take them in minimum squads. I don't see them going with characters. You drop in maybe 2 units of 3 or 3 units of 3 depending on your points, and you just whittle down the units that are causing in the back being a real pain. I honestly like the bolters a little bit better, just that sustained hits 2, twin length, there's 2 damage already. Non-hazardous, really good, just because the hazardous ability, you lose 1, it's going to be a pain. But either way, I still think that there is room for the plasma, certainly if you're playing against things like custodians, as I said. Probably want the plasma, you really want to cause that 3 damage a go. And finally on to the mighty Redemptor Dreadnought at 225 points per model, though I suppose now it's kind of the standard Dreadnought, just with the way the model range is going. So in terms of stats, really, really good. Nice 8-inch movement, but great endurance with toughness 10, save 2+, and wounds 12. I mean, it's going to be quite tough to bring down. In terms of weapons, got an absolutely load of weapons there to choose from, but I'm going to only highlight the plasma one at the moment, really just seems to be the way to go. It gives a healthy amount of shots, it has blast, it is damage 3, it can be strength 9 when it is supercharged. That is really, really deadly. So really looks quite well there. And it retains other weapons and its fist for close combat weaponry. And that fist is really good in itself. 5 attacks, weapon skill 3+, strength 12 -2, and 3 damage. So don't think in a minute this thing can't, wallop you in range. It will also do it in combat as well. Ability is very, very simple. -1 damage. Further makes the Redemptor very difficult to move. A very enduring unit, so I really like that. Overall thoughts, absolutely solid unit. This one seems to be the one that sees the most competitive play out of this box set. Just in terms of its damage potential and endurance, just really stack well. If you have both at the moment, the plasma is going to absolutely rip things apart. There's other optional stuff with it as well. It does well in melee. Just generally an absolute solid unit that no matter where it lands in a list, it is really going to do quite well. Overall thoughts when it comes to this box set. Great variety of units in this, with a battle line unit, a quick damage dealer, and a helpful character for combat units, and an extremely competitive Dreadnought. Now, how do I see the usage when you're looking at beginner and someone who's maybe just adding this to an existing force? As a beginner, I think there's a lot of solid areas to begin with. The main weakness in this one is I feel the Chaplain, you need to utilise the Chaplain with a combat unit, so I don't know if it works well with the units in this box set itself, so you're going to have to buy something on top of that. And then adding to an existing force, I still feel this is actually a great addition. Most of these units would be at home in any collection. You've got the Dreadnought, which I've seen people run 3 of them. The Inceptors, people are thinking are quite good, so rounding up a few more of them. And then Intercessors, well, depends on your thoughts on that. I really like them, so some people really like to collect some troops. I think that's really good there. Again, the only weakness is that you may already have a Chaplain, and I don't see people needing more than one of these. Overall thoughts, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. The main weakness of this force is the Chaplain. Very rare you're going to need multiple of these, and it is competing with many, many other useful units within the Space Marine Codex. So, or at least their index cards at the moment, but we'll see going forward. So it's a bit difficult in that one, and the other thing as well is that you're probably going to have to buy another unit on top of it to actually utilise the Chaplain properly, because it can go with the Intercessors, but you probably want them with things like Assault Intercessors instead. I think some people would also prefer a choice of maybe rounding up the Intercessors to a 10-man squad than having a Dark Angels upgrades kit. So it's nice to have the upgrade kit, but this is a solid box set so far if it had just been for Space Marines. Overall, as I said, yep, would have been a 10. Maybe if you'd taken out the Dark Angels parts and just been a generic Space Marine one, great. And a different HQ, I don't know which one I want to recommend, would have really bumped this up to the 10 out of 10 factor. Just those 2 underlying factors brought it down, I feel, just a wee bit down to the 8 mark. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh there, but I just feel that it was so close to being an absolute stellar start for any Space Marine force if those 2 things didn't apply. And that is it for my thoughts on the Combat Patrol box set for the Dark Angels. Let me know what your thoughts are on this one. Many people do rate it quite highly. Some of the units in this are highly desirable. Is it a good discount? I would be very intrigued to hear what people's thoughts are. So thanks again for listening. Please comment, share, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.